Peace and Black Power. Welcome to another House of Consciousness TV, where we document our story live on videotape. What we have here before us today, brothers and sisters, is a powerful, powerful brother. He goes by the name of Booker T. Coleman. Some of y'all know the brother by Brother Kaba. What's your full name, brother?
Kaba Hiawatha Kamene.
Okay, beautiful. Before we get into the body of your lecture dealing with culture in the brain, talk to me about your name. What made you change your name? Because I know you by Brother Kaba. I mean, Brother Booker T.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I stayed that way up until 2010. But I was always leaning towards correcting my name. Because I call it correcting my name, not changing.
Okay, gotcha.
And I always, I was really fully motivated in the 70s with Roots.
Okay.
When I watched what happened to Kunta Kinte to become Toby. And psychologically, I always said Toby must become Kunta Kinte from my own spiritual perspective.
Right.
And my father, coming from Tuskegee, Alabama, Booker T. Sr., me Booker T. Jr., it wasn't easy, and that's why I don't jump on brothers and sisters who, because for me, the reason why I changed my name was, as you know, traveling through the community talking about what has happened to us, the atrocities, the Maafa that has happened to us, this terroristic disaster. Speaking of all the horrible things, I just had a problem speaking of the horrors, but still allowing the brand of this terrorist to stay on me. And to me, that's the name.
Right.
So it's hard, it was hard, and it became harder and harder in time to present myself to our people with the brand of the enslaver. But there was a human side to it, and that's why I understand how some folk may be a little funny about correcting their names also. Because it's something you grow up in, you become comfortable in it, you have all your celebrations, you have your love affairs, you graduate, you do all the things in life with this name. It's on all of your papers. And now all of a sudden you're going to have to rearrange this. But my desire to rearrange it was stronger than my need to hold on to it. And it became more difficult. I did a presentation at the Asar Set community in Philadelphia on Germantown Avenue. And there was this really great family that was there. Mother, father, and children. And after the presentation, the brother came up to me and he said, "Brother, man, I'm feeling your presentation." He said, "There's just one thing I can't handle about you." And he said, "That's your name. When are you going to get rid of the slave master's brand?" Right. And this was probably maybe 2001, 2002. And when he said that, that began the clock that began to, it started countdown. It was countdown. Well, it was always there from the days of Roots. But when that brother said that to me, something, for whatever reason, and sometimes in life it happens, whatever borough you live, or I don't know how other states do it, and folk that will be watching, you know, I don't know how they do it, but in the Bronx, I went to the Bronx courthouse, I got my papers, I filled them out, and I
add in the papers and all that?
Well, yeah, that comes later, because the judge has to approve it. The first time my name wasn't approved, because I had an unk.
Oh, man.
And basically, you have to have letters that any general typewriter or computer can type. There's no unk on the computer, at least general ones.
Right.
So I had to. So it was denied first. He explained it to me. I pulled the unk off, and then just put the name back. And within 2 days, it was approved. Then it went through the process, and then you go through having it advertised in 2 newspapers. That's probably the most expensive. When I did it, they told me put away $300. That's what it would cost. The great majority of that, one newspaper charged me, I think, $150, and another newspaper charged me like $70. It was a $50 fee to correct the name. The newspaper is going to be the most expensive.
Okay.
And you do it, it stays in there for a week. You bring evidence, and the newspaper gives you evidence also that they have advertised that name correction. You bring it back to the courthouse, it goes through its process, and they call you. On June 10th, 2002, I was a born-again African.
Beautiful.
And I went there,
Beautiful.
and they told me from now on, Booker T. Coleman Jr. no longer exists. Kaba Hiawatha Kamene is now in existence. So my birthday, I have 2 birthdays. November 16th and May 10th. And it was a Friday.
Okay, I want you to look the camera out there and talk to our family out there and let them know what qualifies you to speak on these certain issues like dealing with the Maafa, dealing with melanin, dealing with the Dogon. What qualifies you to do that? Give them your credentials, my brother.
Well, bottom line to me is I'm an African in search of my roots. And I'm sovereign. And I don't need no court to tell me that. It came into my mind I was sovereign. And if I say I'm sovereign, I'm sovereign. It don't make a difference how many papers are in front of me. And I have a right by a creator to find out who I am. And I have a right, having been impacted by Professor John Henry Clark at a very young age, 12 and a half, in the 7th grade, going into the 8th grade, to be able to search and to share my findings. And basically that's what I've done. I'm New York City Board of Education. I graduated. Some people call it retirement. I call it graduation. Because now I'm doing what I was born to do. I'm now truly commencing my life. And 31 years, 3 months, and 15 days, the amount of time I spent in the Board of Ed. A little bit more than that overall, but I get credit as it relates to the Board of Ed. I am a professor at in the Black Studies Department at State University, New York, in New Paltz. But all that I just told you, my schooling, my master's degrees, none of that to me is important. What's important is that I'm a brother who is attempting to carry the legacy of people such as Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad and Huey P. Newton and all the others that have come before us. Fannie Lou Hamer, Shashi McIntyre, John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben. We could do libation right here on those that came before us. I claim the right as a human being in this day to do what is necessary to support our people, our community, and to explain to folk right off the bat, don't believe a word I say. I'm not saying anything I say, I don't say for you to believe. I'm not trying to persuade you or anyone else. I'm only trying to, in the best way possible, make us think as a people, because there is a story that has been put out there. And Dr. Wade Nobles tells us that power is the ability to define someone's reality and to have that person accept that definition as if it were their own. And something has been told to us and to the world about us that is just not true. For many different reasons, psychological in nature or however you want to look at it, the world and some of us and many of us have bought into this story. And I'm here to say that there needs to be a paradigm shift. And a paradigm shift means that you have gone along a paradigm, you've gone along a way of living, a way of thinking, a way of doing. You've become comfortable and it's become your reality. Now we got to shift, because the life that you've been living is an untruth. It doesn't follow ma'at, balance, reciprocity, and righteousness. It does the earth damage. Not just human beings damage, it does the earth damage, it does the water damage, it does the earth and the cosmology damage. And we have to make certain corrections in our thoughts and in our actions. And I don't blame anybody for the condition that we find ourselves in, because I take full responsibility for it. Because when you blame somebody else for the condition you find yourself in, you give them permission. You ask permission for them to get you out. But in giving them that ability to get you out, you also give them the ability to keep you in. But when you accept full responsibility for all things you find yourself in, I can do what I believe is right, as our brother Malcolm said, by any means necessary. Mm-hmm. And so the discussion is not between myself and peoples of European descent. In fact, I tell them, mind your business. You ain't got nothing to do with this. But you didn't do anything. I'm in this position because I am in this position. I am fully responsible. I know what happened. I'm not trying to say I'm cloudy on that. I know how it happened. But realistically speaking, as human entities on the planet, we have to accept responsibility for the position we find ourselves in, because I grew up in a home where a lot of folk, I did not grow up necessarily with heavy jazz in my house. I grew up with heavy blues in my house. And I grew up listening to Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday was my mother's favorite performer, and Sam Cooke. And my mother used to put her album on every Sunday after church. And she didn't make me have to listen to everything, but she said, Skip, that's my nickname, I want you to hear this. And she used to play a song by Billie Holiday and say, Mama may have and Papa may have, but God bless the child that got his own. And as black folk, there's another gospel. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. And as African people, having been pulled away from our family, the continent, we grew up as a motherless child. And with that, your mama may have, your papa may have, but the Creator blesses the child that has its own. I'm not arguing anymore about who put me in this position. If you fall into a pit, you can spend your time complaining about who threw you in, but not one moment is going to get you out. I'd rather spend our creative energies getting out the pit than complaining about it. And when I get out the pit, it ain't even about paying nobody back, because they're not that important in my life. We have to get ourselves together. We have to get our economic system together, our political system, our educational system together. We have to get our spiritual systems together. We have to get our sociological systems together. For us to even spend one moment on them is a moment we're not spending on us. And so I need to be very clear as I approach this, because I am not, you can pay attention to people two ways, negatively and positively. But either way, you're paying attention to them. And when you're paying attention to them, then you're not paying attention to yourself. We have to get ourselves together. We have to save the planet. That's the destiny of peoples of African descent in this diaspora who accept and embrace the truth as we see it, as it stands through scientific research.
Another young brother, as I hear you speak, brother, I got the brother's vision right there in my head. He go by the name of Brother Polite.
Yes, man. Okay.
He was just talking about the same thing you just said.
All right.
You just said it differently.
Yes.
But it's on the same page.
Wow, you should need to put that two together. You need to edit those two pieces together so the community can see like minds.
The Jewish people have what they call the Holocaust. We came up with a word that says the Maafa. The first time I heard that word, I remember I was in the UAM listening to Dr. Naeem Akbar. And when he broke down what is the Maafa, I was like, wow, that right there is deep. So explain to our viewers out there, the younger people, I know a lot of our people do know what it is, but we're talking about the youth coming up now when they hear the words like the Maafa, because I use the word all the time when I'm in front of my pictures and I'm teaching. So explain to the people out there, what is the Maafa? What does that really mean?
From what I see the word itself, it's a Kiswahili word. And it means terroristic disaster. Maafa. M-A-A-F-A. Maafa. Terroristic disaster. And there's so many different ways that it could be explained and defined. But being with young people, I do a presentation I call The Best of the Best. And only the best of the best could have survived. And what I try to do with young people is I try to bring them back into a certain idea, a concept. And what I do is I place them in their community, wherever it may be. And they're playing, boys and girls, and the adults are off in the distance. They can see the elders in the distance, and the elders, the grandparents, they're there, and mother and father are in the fields, they're working, they're in the barbershop, they're all over doing what they're supposed to do. And the children are young and they're playing, 5, 6, 7, 8. Some of the older ones are off working with the elders as apprentices, and they're learning and they're in school. And they're enjoying themselves and just having a good time. They're throwing the ball and they're chasing each other, they're playing tag and all the things that young people do. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a group of people come, don't look anything like anybody that they've ever seen before. Can't conceptualize who these people are. They grab them and they beat them, they knock them to the ground. In the distance, the young people are watching the elders in the community being shot and killed. They're hearing mothers and grandmothers being yanked by their cornrows and their hair and being knocked down to the ground and being shot. And well, they don't really know what that is because they don't know what a gun is. But they see them dropping and not moving anymore. And these children, these young people who were once playing and having a good time and having been taught the oral tradition of their communities and being taught the language in which they came up in, all of a sudden now they're being spoken to in a language, in a tongue that they don't even know what it means. And every time they try to figure out what this individual is saying, they smack them to the ground, beat them with sticks. They have these things, they just ram them. And then all of a sudden they put these manacles, these things on their arm. They never saw anything like this before because in their community nobody ever has these things on. But all of a sudden they realize they can't move their hands. They're pulled up and pushed and made to walk. They're hungry, forget food. They see the other people that grab them, they're eating, and they're thirsty. They've been walking now for hours, and hours becomes days and nights, and this is happening constantly. They're tired, but if they dare get up to complain or say that they're tired, they can't say they're tired because they're not speaking the same. They're beat again, tortured, and for day and for night and for day and for night, for quite a while, they're beaten. Some of them even see some of their young sisters being raped by the men that have grabbed these individuals that don't look nothing like them. They're brought across for days and for nights, for days, and then all of a sudden they're thrown into these dungeons. They're put on top of each other. All of a sudden they're there and they feel something liquid and they smell something. And all of a sudden they realize the person that's on top of them is actually going to the bathroom on them because they cannot go anyplace. They're not fed. They're beaten. They continue to see themselves being raped, and even some of the young boys are raped themselves. They're going through these experiences, and everything that they remembered from that community is no longer happening in their lives, and their new experience, their new paradigm, their new outline, their new way of living now is changing in their mind, and they have to, I'm speaking on this level, but they're literally having to recircuit their brains. Because in order for them to survive, they have to be able to do things that will help them survive. They're kept in these dungeons for weeks, don't know what's going on, they're beaten, they're hurt. They're even with people who look like them, but they don't speak the same language, so even they that look alike cannot speak to each other. We're talking about a terroristic disaster. I don't want us to forget this. Because all of the children that I'm talking about are the children that could be in the Harlems or in the Detroits or in the South Sides of Chicago or in the Comptons or in the Bronx. Okay, that's who I'm talking about here. So don't lose sight that this could be us, but just at another time and place. They're brought up out of these dungeons and they're put into these huge situations that they've seen smaller ones along the lakes that they lived in or in the ponds, and they used to even make some out of sticks. But they're put in these, what we're going to call boats, and they're brought down in the bottom, and now they're on the water. And they're brought up every so often and hosed down. The guy has this thing, they just hose them down with water and then knock them back down into the pit. We're talking about a terroristic disaster. They're brought across and then they get into this climate area. They're brought into this area and they're beaten. They are made to change. Their names are no longer what it was. So when the guy said, "What's your name, boy?" He says, "Kunta Kinte." He said, "No, your name is Toby." "No, my name is Kunta Kinte," because you don't understand. You don't even understand what this man is saying. He beat him. Every time he said name Kunta Kinte, he get beat. "No, Toby. Kunta Kinte, Toby." Pretty soon, survival kicks in. He rewires his brain and says, "Well, maybe he won't hit me again if I just say Toby." So he said, "What's your name, nigga?" "Toby." "Oh, okay." survival.
You're going to learn to say your name. Let me hear you say it. What's your name?
Kunta Kinte.
When the master gives you something, you take it. He gave you a name. It's a nice name. It's Toby. And it's going to be yours till the day you die. Now, I know you understand me, and I want to hear it. Again! I want to hear you say your name. Your name is Toby. What's your name?
Kunta.
Lord God, help that boy. They're gonna whip him dead.
What's your name? Say it. Toby. Who are you? Say your name. What's your name?
Toby.
Hi. Say it again. Say it louder so they all can hear you. What's your name?
Toby. My name is Toby.
Hi. That's a good nigger.
Young brother said, okay, now if I just go along with this, then it's all right. Tortured, hurt badly, hard to say, but sold. Now with all that I have said, from the moment this young man and this young woman were captured from their community, only the best of the best could have survived that travel across. The others died out.
That's right.
Only the best of the best, physically, mentally, and spiritually, could have survived. When they were brought down and thrown into the dungeons, out of that best, only the best of the best could have survived. When they were brought up and put on the ships and brought over into what we call the Caribbean area, only the best of the best could have survived. Only the best of the best, mentally, physically, and spiritually. The terroristic disaster, this Maafa, no matter what they did, they were able to overcome it. Despite and in spite of that, they still overcame all those things and still they rose. They were able to survive. Only the best of the best could have done that. This terroristic disaster, this Maafa, this experience of coming from a very loving and accepting and respectful and understanding community now. Your whole world has turned. Your paradigm has been shifted. The way in which you're thinking now is not about what I'm going to do tomorrow to enjoy myself in my environment. Now you're saying, what can possibly happen to me? And yes, it did get worse. They were then sold. And that young man and that young woman, Kunta Kinte and Ahine, sister and brother, now are separated. Ahine is brought to an island that's called a rich port, Puerto Rico.
You said Ahine?
Ahine is the girl,
Okay.
okay, and a boy, brother and sister. Ahine is sold to Puerto Rico, the plantation in Puerto Rico. Because remember, we're only dealing with the Spaniards now. British ain't in this now.
Not yet.
Dutch ain't here yet, okay? Portuguese are on the other side of the world because the world has been split in half. So you don't see the Portuguese here except in the southern part of America known as Brazil. So you're dealing with Spaniards now. You're dealing with Europeans. Not the people of the Caribbean we know today. You're talking about Europeans who at one time, before they got into Spain, these were Germans, Visigoths and Vandals. You see why they got that name, Vandal. Kunta Kinte is sold to this coastline. Ahine brings forward children who are sold to various islands, and Quisqueya, which we today is a combined island of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, sold to St. Lucia, sold to Virgin Islands, sold to Aruba. Kunta Kinte has his family, and his family goes throughout the South. They're being sold. And for hundreds of years, they remain in this state of what we call forced enslavement, imprisoned, kidnapped, held in bondage against their will. Terroristic disaster. The lives that they were used to no longer. The morals that they had, the values that they had, the interests that they had, the principles that they had, all changed. And these individuals who clutched the Bible in one hand, clutched the devil's hand in the other, and they merged the two together. And that became a religious system that they put on black folk, made them follow it. Black folk so smart, black folk brought a faith system from Africa, and they superimposed this European religion over their African belief system. Spanish-speaking Africans called it Santeria, Espiritualismo, when they blended it with the Native American Taino. In the French-speaking Caribbean, they called it Voodoo. In Brazil, they called it Candomblé. In the English-speaking islands, they called it Obia. And in the southern states, they called it the Baptist Church. Yeah, the Baptist Church is very close to Santeria when you study the ritual. That's why the Black Baptists are so different from European Baptists, because their practice is very, very African. Whether they want to escape it or not is African. Just a call and response. Just the dancing of the minister up on the dais is example of it. So when you talk about a terroristic disaster, you have these African people who are going to fight and going to create an industrial system in this country through their free labor. They're going to create an economic system that to this day, with now in the present day, 2012, people from all over the world will come here to be able to benefit from what the indigenous Africans of America did, who were brought here and created this industrial revolution. Not only did Africans bring in the industrial revolution that we know of in the late 1800s, 1900s, up until that time, black folk were the industrial revolution. They were the machines that built this country. Immigrants did not build this country. They came here to be able to benefit from what was already here.
That's right.
And the immigrants were brought here in 1870. See, a lot of people think of immigration and Ellis Island as going into the early 20th century to 1900s. That's not true. Immigration started 1870, and it started in 1870 because when Europeans saw what black folk were doing after the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, they knew it would only be a couple of decades before black folk ruled America. Because remember, black folk built America, so who else to inherit it but the builders? Europeans didn't know the machines. They didn't know how to do that. You got a man named Granville T. Woods. Granville T. Woods is the father of the trains. Transportation, communication are two cornerstones. They're the twins of industrial revolution. Because once you have a product, you gotta talk about it, which is communication, and then you gotta send it places, which is transportation. Transportation and communication. If you look at all of the inventions that we are going through, whether it's the iPad, whether it's the computer, whether it's new cars, whether it's electric cars, everything is rooted in transportation and communication.